Greetings everybody, my name is Teak, and this week I'm going to take a look at everything cool that caught my eye during this year's E3. Nintendo started out strong with their Smash Bros. Direct, which also happened to coincide with the release of Lucas. However, Lucas didn't come in alone. Alongside Lucas, Nintendo announced 2 additional DLC fighters to join the Super Smash Bros. Roster. First up, Roy is back in Smash. Making his return from Smash Bros. Melee, Roy specializes even more on close-range fighting than his fellow Fire Emblem clone characters. In addition to Roy, just as the sound file hack predicted, Ryu joins the battle too. The World Warrior has an interesting set of mechanics. His specials work like normal Smash Bros. Specials, but you can also use Ryu's Street Fighter inputs for stronger versions of his regular moves.
You can activate a Shoryuken with just one button press, but if you enter the original command input, there's a good chance you will KO your opponent. Try making contact at the start of the animation.
New fighters weren't the only new addition though. Dreamland from the N64 version of Smash Bros. Has been remade for the Wii U and 3DS versions of the game. Sakurai also mentioned that 2 more classic stages are on the way. The N64 versions of Hyrule Castle and Peach's Castle are both in the works. The long-awaited Miiverse stage has also been put into play as well, although I would suggest avoiding it if possible for a while. At least until people get tired of posting Game of Thrones spoilers and pictures of dicks. Unfortunately, tournament mode still isn't finished, but it is on the way with a tentative August release. Nintendo is also working on a YouTube upload feature for your replays. It looks pretty similar to the way Mario Kart 8 uploads videos, but that game doesn't let you upload races longer than a minute. It'll be interesting to see what restrictions they put in this game. After the Smash Bros. Announcement, there was one more big surprise. Now, Lucas is the protagonist of Mother 3, the Game Boy Advance sequel to Earthbound that has, in spite of near continuous fan demand, never been released in the West. So of course you can imagine the hype when series creator Shigesato Itoi appeared on screen to announce the release of a game that has never been released in the West. And it turned out to be Earthbound Beginnings, a Western port of Mother 1, the first game of the trilogy.
Come on, Reggie, give us Mother 3!
How about this instead?
Maybe next year, Mother fans. In the meantime, it's time for the 2015 Nintendo World Championship, and what a show it was! The 8 qualifiers of the Best Buy preliminaries mixed it up with 8 invited YouTubers and speedrunners to see who would come out on top as champion. The Midwest even got some representation in the form of Timsy88 from West Union, Iowa. In the double elimination contest, the top players of a particular game move on to the next round while the bottom players are sent to the Underground, where they have one last shot of winning the title. The first round was a game of Splatoon, which was adorably co-hosted by an expert in all things ink.
That was a really tight match.
It was a really tight match. Do you think the next one is going to be as close?
Probably. It could be anything. It could be 0.1% close.
It could be.
The games were intense, but it would have been nice to know who each player was, particularly when this player got a quad kill on the other team.
Blue with another hit there, a splat on the roller, and right now Blue actually, if they can get that roller, they've got almost all the Inklings from the orange team down. And now triple splat! Triple splat!
Oh my god!
Blue Inkling is doing a ton of damage to the orange team.
After Splatoon, the first round in the Underground was a race to find the first Triforce piece in the original Legend of Zelda.
Where did that come from? BSG 4000 going for the Triforce! BSG 4000 has it for Triforce! That is it!
In round 2, the surviving players competed on teams again in this very Metroid-looking game of soccer called Blast Ball. This time they did tell us who was on what team, and unfortunately, my boy Timsy's team lost in a 1-3 match. Timsy was sent to the Underground in a race to complete the last boss battle of Super Metroid. While Tim was the first player to get through the first stage of the Mother Brain fight, he fell behind in stage 2. Sinister was the first of the 5 players to trigger the third stage of the fight, gaining a few seconds and overtaking Timsy from there. Timsy made a valiant effort and was the only other player not to die in the match, but ultimately wasn't fast enough. In stage 3, the remaining players moved on to Mario Kart 8, where Cosmo Wright, co-founder of Speedruns Live, just couldn't handle the speed of 200cc. Cosmo got sent to the Underground, where it turned out Balloon Fighter was more his speed, getting the top score out of the remaining players. Once out of the Underground, Cosmo tempted fate in Smash Bros. By using an untested Roy. The gambit paid off though. Cosmo made it to the final round, facing off against John Numbers, the Best Buy qualifier from New York, who also holds the highest regional score on the NES Remix leaderboard. The final challenge for these two? Custom-made Mario levels built with Super Mario Maker. John Numbers took the first round, conquering a malicious stage of Super Mario Bros.
John seems to have the timing down. Oh! 2, come on now, 3! Yeah!
But Cosmo quickly tied it up during the Super Mario Bros. 3 stage. Next up was the stage of Super Mario World, which featured many challenges, including the perilous Doors of Nope. Both players beat the stage, but John Numbers did it faster, earning him a 15-second head start for the final stage on New Super Mario Bros. Not that he needed it. Wall jumping turned out to be Cosmo's biggest weakness, and John Numbers was able to take his time through the level all the way to victory. Following Nintendo on Sunday must have been intimidating, but Bethesda did it anyway during their first ever showcase. They got off to a good start with the trailer for the new Doom game, which looks like it's going to bring back everything we loved about the original game from 1993, including the absurd moral panic. Next up was one of my favorite highlights of the show, the reveal trailer for Dishonored 2. It looks like not everything has been great in Emily Caldwin's life because she's grown up to follow in Corvo's footsteps.
You cover your face, but I know who you are. Emily Caldwin.
Both Corvo and Emily will be playable in the game, each with their own unique abilities. And of course, the biggest bang for Bethesda was a sneak peek at Fallout 4. But once again, I'm just not that into the franchise, so while it's worth mentioning, I really don't have anything to say about it. Although I do have to admit that the mobile game, Fallout Shelter, does look pretty neat. It's kinda like SimCity for the apocalypse. Shame it's gonna take a few months to put it on Android devices. On Monday, Microsoft started things off with a pretty strong showing for the Xbox One. Of course, they came out swinging with some Halo 5 footage, and I didn't know that Nathan Fillion was in the franchise. I'm suddenly much more interested in it again.
Every other Spartan, every soldier, when they hear about this, they're gonna hate us. You know that, right?
Thankfully, if I want to catch up, it seems like a PC version of the Master Chief Collection might just be on its way. Hopefully the multiplayer will be working by then. Next up was a new game called Recore by Keiji Inafune's Concept, who looks like they've kept busy now that Mighty No. 9 is about done. It's hard to say what the gameplay of Recore will be like, but it's a safe bet it'll involve putting your cybernetic dog's consciousness in a variety of different robot bodies. Another interesting game is Gigantic. Not entirely sure what it's about here, but it looks like you can play as an archery fox and summon a dragon, so it's got that going for it. Beyond Eyes looks like another very pretty game, which is kinda sadly ironic, considering you play as a blind girl trying to make her way through the world. If you're a fan of 1930s cartoons about old school platformers, and really, who isn't, Cuphead might be the game for you. It looks like what would happen if Walt Disney made a Contra game. And while it's been a long time since I've played an MMO, if Sea of Thieves is half the pirate game it looks like, I might just have to dive in. Getting back to the AAA titles, Rise of the Tomb Raider takes the rebooted Lara Croft away from the island that's doing its damnedest to kill her and puts her on a mountain doing its damnedest to kill her. Aside from games, Microsoft also announced that they're working on making the Xbox One backwards compatible with the Xbox 360, so if you have an Xbox One, I hope you didn't sell all your 360 games. And even though they just updated the Xbox One controller, Microsoft is going a step further with the Xbox Elite, which will allow you to customize the buttons and triggers to your liking. Next up, the force was strong with Electronic Arts. Disney may have wiped out most of the extended universe when they bought Star Wars, but the Old Republic is still alive and kicking. A new expansion to the Star Wars MMO promises an even greater focus on BioWare-style storytelling. Knights of the Fallen Empire will introduce a new enemy faction to fight and choices to make that'll shape your character's story. Along with the Old Republic, EA also released new footage from the next Star Wars Battlefront game. I hope you like going back to Hoth. But it wasn't all about Star Wars at the EA panel. The indie game Unraveled introduced not just a new adorable mascot for the puzzle platformer genre, but a new adorable developer in Martin Salin, whose presentation made the collective internet go, "Aww."
And that's how Yarny came to be, and I actually brought him with me.
Next up, it was Ubisoft's turn, and they started out with Trey Stone and Matt Parker, who have been talked into making a second South Park game.
We just realized that right at the end of Stick of Truth, we kind of learned how to make video games, and it was kind of too late.
Yeah.
And we were like, well, fuck, now we know how to make a good video game.
Yeah.
So we have a good template to do it, and we thought, fuck it, let's do it.
Yeah. Do it again.
Yeah, we might regret it, but we're doing it again.
The Division is still in the works from last year, and this time around Ubisoft revealed that the game has Dark Zones, PvP-enabled zones that allow, if not encourage, team killing.
Brian, what are you waiting for?
Dude, clock's ticking. Let's go, come on.
Are you leaving?
What the fuck? Hostile agent neutralized.
I can't imagine that the loot in there would possibly be worth burning bridges like that, but who knows? Maybe it was a really nice gun. And in this year's Assassin's Creed game, we're going to 1800s London to save orphans from greedy industrialists. This time you play as the twin assassins Jacob and Evie Fry. It kinda looks like Jacob's missions involve building a street gang, which may mean you get NPCs to do your dirty work for you.
I'll let you take it from here, lads.
Meanwhile, Evie seems to be more of a loner, dispatching her targets more personally. Finally, the day's conferences ended with what was indisputably the strongest showing of the weekend. First up, a game first revealed at E3 in 2009 and then never seen again. The Last Guardian has been stuck in development hell for the last 6 years, and many feared that the game had been cancelled altogether when Sony forgot to renew their trademark for the title. But against all odds, here it is. What was originally supposed to be a PlayStation 3 game is now a PS4 game due out next year. Also coming soon is Street Fighter V. 2 new fighters were announced for the game, Cammy and Birdie, along with new details about the game's mechanics. For super special attacks, each character has a V-gauge that they can fill up using a unique ability. Next up was No Man's Sky, the open galaxy game that captured everybody's attention last year. Every dot on that screen is a solar system with planets to explore and exploit. The planets are fully destructible and apparently come with giant walking robots to fight. It's still unclear what exactly you're supposed to do, but the gist of it seems to be whatever you want. Of course, it wouldn't be a PlayStation panel without some Final Fantasy, and it seemed like Square Enix's entry this year would be the world of Final Fantasy, a chibi-fied new game that looks pretty darn adorable.
Join forces with adorably familiar heroes and heroines, and witness a most peculiar story unfold.
But that wouldn't be all. Dropping the biggest mic at E3, after years of speculation, rumors, and desperate begging, Sony made an announcement that fulfilled the wishes of everybody that ever wondered what the heck those 1/35th scale soldiers were for.
The reunion at hand may bring joy. It may bring fear. But let us embrace whatever it brings. For they are coming back. At last, the promise has been made.
Final Fantasy VII is getting a remake. And because Sony apparently hired a wish-granting genie to produce their show this year, why not follow that up by announcing a Kickstarter for Shenmue 3?
Let's count down!
Let's count it down, guys. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
That countdown, in reality, was a countdown for Kickstarter's servers to explode, and when they came back up, well, let's take a look. There we go. $2 million goal. That sounds pretty high for a Kickstarter. I wonder how long it'll take them to... 9 hours. They raised $2 million in 9 hours. Okay, so let's add Shenmue 3 to the list of games that people never thought would actually happen that are happening now. So, after a show like that, Nintendo better bring their A game. And hey, off to a good start with puppet versions of Satoru Iwata, Reiji Fiyame, and Shigeru Miyamoto. Naturally, the puppets gradually changed into puppet Star Fox characters to showcase Star Fox Zero. Featuring a walking R-Wing, a flying Landmaster tank, and a drone that deploys another drone, this new Star Fox game fully utilizes the Wii U's gamepad.
By using two screens, you can see yourself flying in third person on the TV, while shooting down at the enemies below you from the cockpit view on the gamepad.
Miyamoto is, of course, only talking to Wii U owners that have two sets of eyes. The rest of us with just the one set will probably have to choose between playing the game on the gamepad or watching it on the television. And because amiibo scarcity wasn't already enough of a problem, Nintendo has decided to team up with Activision to create a combination amiibo Skylander. Activision has a better track record of keeping Skylanders on the shelves, so it'll be interesting to see if they can make enough HammerSlam Bowsers to meet demand for both Skylander and amiibo collectors. Next up, The Legend of Zelda Triforce Heroes, a 3DS game that brings a new twist on the Four Swords formula. Along with stacking mechanics to take advantage of the vertical depth, this game also seems to have a pseudo-class system in the form of different outfits for your heroes. Series director Eiji Aonuma also provided a few additional details about Hyrule Warriors Legends, the 3DS port of the Wii U game. The game will not only include all of the characters and DLC characters from the original game, but also feature new Wind Waker themed stages to go with Tetra and the King of Red Lions. Of course, the bigger story revolves around the Zelda game that wasn't shown, the still untitled Zelda for Wii U. Although Nintendo did say that the game wouldn't be at E3, some held out hope that they would at least release a little information about it. Zelda Wii U was first shown during last year's E3, and the first and only game footage was revealed during December's Game Awards. Originally scheduled for a 2015 release, it was announced in March that the game would be delayed. While it seemed that an early 2016 release was likely, its lack of presence at E3 suggests that this delay is longer than expected, potentially fall or even winter of next year. This has some speculating that the game might be on its way to becoming a launch title for Nintendo's next-gen system, the NX, much like how the GameCube version of Twilight Princess was delayed so a Wii version could be made. Of course, there's no way of knowing what's happening with the game or if there's any validity to these speculations because Nintendo decided not to show anything at E3. But if Zelda fans were disappointed by the lack of Zelda, it's nothing compared to the disappointment felt by Metroid fans. It turns out that Blast Ball looked a lot like Metroid for a reason, because it's a side game in Metroid Prime Federation Force. And while the game looks like it might be fun, it also looks like a PC game from 15 years ago, it's co-op based, and it doesn't appear to feature Samus. Add that to the fact that this year is the 30th anniversary of the franchise, it's been 5 years since the last Metroid game came out, and 8 years since the last Metroid game anybody liked, and well, this was not the Metroid Prime game that the fanbase was hoping for. And in case you thought Nintendo didn't have enough multiplayer spin-off titles this year, there's an Animal Crossing version of Mario Party called Animal Crossing Amiibo Party. Like the name implies, the game will require the use of an amiibo for each player. Go ahead, Nintendo, I dare you to try and sell this game at regular price. Thankfully, the Mario side of things is still looking strong. Yoshi's Woolly World looks charming and fun, if not a little easy, and it looks like there's some interesting developments on the Mario RPG side of things. Mario & Luigi Paper Jam looks to be the next installment in both the Mario & Luigi and Paper Mario franchise, although personally I'm just fascinated by the idea of two different Marios teaming up. What's next? Crisis on Infinite Mario Galaxies? And of course they finished off the Direct with a little more info on Mario Maker, but really after seeing the stages they made during the World Championship, what more do you really need to see?
With enough practice, anyone can become a good course designer.
Next up, Square Enix put on their own show, which seems a bit redundant considering most of their games were already shown the day before. Something new they did show was a teaser for Nier, which is apparently an upcoming action RPG from Platinum Games. I honestly don't know anything about the franchise or the gameplay, but the development team is a who's who of talented people, and this teaser looks really pretty. Also, for some reason, this piece of Nightmare Fuel was the announcer for the presentation, because Japan. For the Kingdom Hearts fans out there, we also got some new footage from Kingdom Hearts 3. Ride those teacups. It's hard to say from the trailer what all the new worlds Sora and the gang will be visiting, but this one is definitely from the world of Tangled. And finally, Square finished their show with a new trailer for Deus Ex: Mankind Divided. In a world where augmented people are forced to live in ghettos, Adam Jensen gets stuck trying to keep innocent people out of harm's way when a group of cyborg terrorists rise up.
Innocent people died in that bombing today.
The augmented are suffering a genocide. It begins with demonizing us, treating us as less than human, exiling us so we are forgotten, and then exterminating us.
For the last panel of the show, PC Gaming got their own time in the spotlight with the PC Gaming Show. Hosted by Sean Day9 Plot, the event showcased not only upcoming PC games, but the latest and greatest of AMD graphics cards.
There we are, look, we've got a graphics card or two on the screen.
A lot of the presentation showcased new development for existing games like Pillars of Eternity and Guild Wars 2, but there were a couple of neat standouts, like Enter the Gungeon.
Now we're stepping into these rooms, and my understanding is, as you said, it's a mix between Binding of Isaac and these bullet hell sort of shooters.
And of course, Blizzard wrapped up the show by announcing the first expansion for Heroes of the Storm. The Diablo-based expansion, Eternal Conflict, will introduce King Leoric to the game, who has a unique death mechanic.
When he dies, he turns into a wraith, and he stays on the battlefield. And he'll stay on the battlefield for the duration of his death.
Other new characters include the Butcher and an unnamed monk. But of course, what better way to wrap things up than with a new look at StarCraft II Legacy of the Void. While there wasn't much to announce about the expansion itself, Blizzard did announce that there would be a 3-mission mini-campaign featuring Zeratul, which will build up to the expansion's release. The 3 pre-game missions will be completely free and serve as a way to introduce new players to the Legacy of the Void if they haven't played the previous 2 games. And that about wraps it up for this year's E3 Roundup. Tell me what your favorite game was in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe, maybe pass this video around to your friends, and have a great week.